Hello, ladies, gents, and my non-binary friends. Today I am painting and discussing hill giants. Hill giants are voracious, primitive giants defined by their gluttony. They were absolutely shafted as far as giants go. Basically the poo people of true giants. They are the shortest, the least intelligent, and the lowest in rank according to the ordning, which is the giant social structure dating back to the ancient empire of Astaria, which sounded really interesting, so I'm probably going to try and fit that into a later video as well. But there's a weirdly huge amount of hill giant lore, so it's not going to fit here. They were granted domain over the rolling hills by Anam Allfather, the god and creator of the giants. They are masters of its slope and deeply connected to the land itself. Okay, so the description of hill giants. Hill giants average around 16 feet tall. In addition to being the shortest, least powerful, and least intelligent of all the giants, these poo people are also gluttonous, which means they are almost universally overweight, as you can see this absolute chad of a hill giant here. The average weight is around 4,500 pounds. They generally have dark or very tan skin. I painted light colored skin because I didn't know that, and I apologize. Hill giants are humanoid in shape, aside from low foreheads, stooped shoulders, thick limbs, and elongated arms. Despite being the shortest of giants, they are also the most muscular. They got the like dad bod muscle going on here. Well, maybe a little bit too overweight for true dad bod, but they got the muscles, in the arms at least. The traits that most other races often see as attractive are considered strange and worthy of scorn to hill giants. These repulsive traits include straight teeth, neat hair, unblemished skin, clear speech, and a lack of drool when eating. It's, you know she's hot when just her whole chin is soaked in saliva while eating. 5-star lady right there. I bet this guy drools constantly while eating. Hill giants are selfish and brutish bullies that often force weaker creatures to do their bidding. They live as uncivilized savages, surviving by foraging, hunting, and raiding for food, when not forcing other, smaller beings into doing the work for them. Hill giants are very much chaotic evil. Their temper causes them to act impulsively and violently when agitated. They are likely to go on a violent rampage if they feel like they've been deceived, mocked, or otherwise humiliated. And their tantrums would rage against the guilty and innocent alike. There are, of course, outliers among hill giants, as in all races. Some are chaotic neutral or evil, even good, and some are relatively intelligent. Okay, let's move on to intelligence. As with many dude bros, hill giants equate size with strength. And this isn't just, the size of their muscles, it's size as in width. This Chad of a hill giant here, Chad, he's got to be like 8 feet wide, right? He's fitting the bigger is better mentality for sure. So when a creature is smaller, they are prey, and larger creatures are, of course, dangerous adversaries. This logic is likely the reason for the gluttony among hill giants. They believe that if they consume a large amount of food, they will grow large and therefore better. Hill giants are reckless, sluggish, and notoriously moronic, such that they would have died out were it not for their great strength and size. Hill giants are blunt and direct in conversation. You can't reason with them. But a clever adventurer could manipulate them. You just have to keep your directions simple. Hill giants are very formidable combatants. A hill giant's preferred combat strategy, which honestly shocking that they have strategies, but here we go, is of course the time-honored giant tactic of throwing rocks at their enemies. They pelt enemies with boulders from high, rocky outcroppings, which allows them to deal damage while incurring very little risk for themselves. This is surprisingly smart considering how emphasized their low intelligence is. They carry the rocks in large bags on their back. Once an opponent enters melee range, hill giants stop hurling stones and pull out their preferred weapon, an oversized club. If a hill giant is caught without their weapons, they are perfectly happy to uproot trees or yank rocks out of the ground. They also love trampling smaller enemies at the start of battle, before standing fast and swinging with their clubs. When faced with more than one target, they make sweeping motions with their clubs in an attempt to knock their enemies to the ground. Some even like to leap on smaller foes, crushing them under their bulk. When hill giants expect to face smaller enemies, such as humans, they make makeshift greaves from bark or stones, dangling around their waist as an obstacle to people trying to slip between their legs. Hill giants are also wise enough to know that a hopeless situation is one to escape from, rather than continue fighting to the death. When faced with the prospect of death, they may even fall into incoherent blubbering and sobbing, which sounds kind of hilarious. Moving on from combat, let's run through hill giant society real quick. Like other breeds of giant, hill giants have developed their own value system over the millennia, and their unique culture was centered around one thing: food. According to the hill giant belief system, the one true meaning of life was to satisfy one's appetites. And over the years, the dull creatures have managed to make the simple philosophy of hedonism into a surprisingly deep extremes. Unusually learned hill giants were known to write elaborate poems using food and consumption in complex metaphors regarding the many trials of life. A hill giant's position in the ordning, once again, the social ranking among giant races and giants as a whole. The social ranking is based around an odd combination of physical might and gastral superiority. That's right. Their social status is in part determined by how powerful their tummies are. Because, among hill giants, self-gratification is the purpose of life. And this includes, I guess, delicious foods. Therefore, if you are more able to eat a lot, then surely you are also more able to lead. Size is the same thing as strength to hill giants. And so, the tallest, widest, and heaviest members of a hill giant tribe, normally but not always still able to move, is considered the most successful and admirable. The qualities that other races and creatures expect of their leaders, such as intelligence, decisiveness, and charisma, are not rewarded or recognized as important beyond their capacity to aid a hill giant in obtaining more food. Among hill giants, ordning challenges to rise in rank occur in the form of an epic eating competition, which honestly seems a lot more civilized than a lot of other bloody methods that humanoid races use. You know, like when the king dies and he didn't say which of his kids gets to inherit the kingdom. Now there's a big war and a bunch of people die. What if instead they just had a huge eating competition? Could be so much more simple. Anyways, after massive meals were prepared, the contestants would show up, eat, and leave once every 3 hours until one side couldn't continue. On rare occasions, these competitions could go on for weeks with neither side allowed to sleep. At the top of a hill giant ordning was the chief known as the Storkok, meaning master eater in their own dialect. While the Storkok handles the most important matters, they have subordinates called gluttons that are tasked with supervising labor, law enforcement, and the creation of new rules. But their most important duties are, of course, supervising the acquisition of food, hunting, and the creation of new recipes. Below the gluttons are the fetchers, a position meant to groom them for later greatness. Each fetcher is the assistant to a specific glutton and are tasked with handling minor details related to their positions, such as stocking the vegetables or non-exotic livestock. Some additional positions are hoarders, that are responsible for performing inventory, storing the perishables, cooking supplies, and reporting on food levels. Hunters stalk game and bring it back home. They often form hunting parties to do so. Gatherers obtain food that cannot be hunted. And lowest in the ordning are herders, who kill and butcher the tribal herd unless the tribe has slaves. Then herders will manage the slaves in doing so. So, you may notice that at every level in the ordning of hill giants, it's all associated with food. They don't seem to have, blacksmiths or artists or anything like that, unless you count chef as an artist, which I guess they probably would. As with most giant breeds, hill giants are organized into the Huslider, a giantish word roughly meaning families that are responsible for taking care of children. For hill giants, the Huslider are large and communal and could be relatively unregimented compared to other giant societies, even if each giant still had a specific assigned roles. On occasion, hill giants amuse themselves with inane games, such as a game known as Stuff, in which the hill giants see how many small creatures, such as halflings, gnomes, or goblins, that they can fit into their mouths at once without swallowing, which sounds like an absolute joy for those unfortunate little guys. On occasion, when a hill giant glutton discovered that their food stores were particularly full, then they would throw a grand feast. Sometimes other hill giant chieftains, or even giants from a higher ranking of giant breed, would be invited. Of course, any non-hill giants attending would be unable to keep up with the overindulgence and would have to excuse themselves early. Like other giant races, hill giants keep their belongings on them by keeping them in huge hide sacks. The sacks primarily carry food and throwing rocks. Perhaps unsurprisingly, these bags frequently reek. Many hill giants wear well-worn leather and hide armor crudely sewn together that were usually stolen from another creature. There are even rare instances of hill giants that have metal armor stolen and cobbled together, and much like Stanley cups and lifted trucks, these jury-rigged armor sets are status symbols. Hill giants live in caves and excavated dens, but also occasionally construct crude buildings to live in, such as thick hide tents, clusters of mud huts, and or log forts. And don't worry, the lore also describes the dwellings as crude and stinky, because they are the poo people of giants. The hill giants' relationship with their fellow giant cousins is, well, they fear them. Probably due to the fact that they equate size with power, and their cousins are significantly larger than them. But their cousins view them pretty poorly as well. So, storm giants consider the raiding practices of their lesser kin to be distasteful. Cloud giants use them as brutes to act as fodder for battle for their amusement. Sometimes they collect a fair tax from humanoid lands on their behalf. Frost giants enjoy opportunities to mingle with other tribes so that they can show off their bravery and prowess. And they particularly enjoy their visits to hill giants since the drink is so very plentiful. Finally, many non-giant races sometimes end up serving hill giants, such as the survivors of a defeated orc tribe. Surprisingly, hill giants engage in the practice of keeping pets, including some that could be considered food. They also keep some monstrous scavengers such as oozes, otyugs, ropers, and carrion crawlers, who were attracted to the stench of a hill giant den. The scavengers perform a useful housekeeping service, but are not domesticated to or tended to. They are simply tolerated. Hill giant lairs are often protected by guard animals such as dire wolves and giant lizards. There are very rare occasions in which hill giants are capable of casting spells, but I don't really want to go into those, and it honestly doesn't make much sense with the rest of their lore. My favorite part of applying static grass is spanking the base, because I don't have a static grass applicator, meaning that I can't use the static from the applicator to make grass stand on its end, so I just have to spank it. And it's always fun. But I wouldn't say no to a static grass applicator. Anyways, there are a few subraces of hill giants. For example, Coom giants are an eastern variant that have adapted to life in the Katakoro Shan Mountains of the Hordelands, something I've never heard of. So they are more dexterous than their lowland cousins. Giant trolls are crossbreeds of trolls and hill giants. And hill giants are known to be susceptible to all forms of lycanthropy, aside from were-ravens, and there appears to be no real reason as to why they are immune to being were-ravens, but there you have it. Maybe it's because were-ravens are good aligned, and hill giants are traditionally evil, so the creators of D&D didn't want to have to deal with that. Or maybe the idea of a giant-sized were-raven was simply too terrifying. Anyways, this mini was a ton of fun to paint. I highly recommend it, and I really enjoyed learning about the strangely in-depth hill giant lore. I like the idea of determining a leader by having a eating competition, and I apologize to any players out there for any DMs that may have gotten the idea for a werewolf hill giant. Anyways, it's been great. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, and maybe leave a comment recommending what I should paint and lore next. Have a great day. Bye.